I call to order the Highland Park Board of Education meeting of January 23rd, 2023. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication in the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger, and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board can be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns for the evening. Roll call.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn?
Yes, I'll be here.
I know, right? Yeah.
Ms. Coleman? Ms. Gallen?
Here.
Mr. Krieger?
Here.
Ms. McFadden DiNicola? Ms. Pruce? Mr. Roslevich?
Here.
Ms. Voorhees?
Here.
Mr. Woodward?
Here.
We will now recess to executive session. Be it resolved pursuant to the Sunshine Act, NJSA 10-4-12 and 13, the Highland Park Board of Education will now meet in closed session to discuss matters related to HIB and student discipline. These exemptions are permitted to be discussed in closed session in accordance with the NJSA 10-4-13. Information regarding the board's closed session discussion will be disclosed to the public as soon as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. I move that we recess to executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I move that we reconvene to regular session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Pledge allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We've had no communications this month, so I move to approve the minutes from the hybrid public workshop meeting, December 5th, 2022, and the hybrid public regular and executive session meetings from December 12th, 2022.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gallen?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Roslevich?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
We have two things for our superintendent's report tonight. We're going to begin with our student spotlight from high school. Oh, I'm sorry. No, actually, we have the student representative report. My apologies. You may begin.
So for Irving, February 1st is a global play day where our students will take part in an unstructured play for the entire day. And also our PTO will be sending candygrams for Valentine's Day. Watch for the sign-up that will be coming home this week. For Lunar New Year, our morning announcements are being done in English and Mandarin this week. Our families received a bookshelf of wonderful books to share with their children as well.
For Bartle School, Bartle's EPIC hosted the Staff versus Students Fitness Challenge on January 17th through the 20th. This event was so much fun and the students won the week. February 3rd, the Universal African Dance and Drum Assembly will be performing for our students. February 8th is the Steam Night at Bartle from 6 to 8 p.m. And February 13th will be our EPIC Family Valentine's Dance.
For the middle school, auditions for the spring musical are today at 3:30. And Glow Junior will just put their latest edition of the Gazette. Reach out to Ms. Miller for a copy. Also, volunteers are needed to help coach girls on the run. Check out our website for more information. There's a parent workshop opportunity for all parents and faculty and staff if interested. The workshop will be presented via Zoom and on Wednesday, January 25th from 1 to 2:30 p.m. A recording of the parent workshop will be posted to the ESCNJ website at a later date. Check our website for all information. Lastly, the Teen Center is hosting a Valentine's Dance for 6th grade students. More to come.
And for the high school, the Lunar New Year celebration by the Asian Culture Club was very successful last Thursday. The basketball teams, one of them didn't even want to play our boys team because we were just doing that great, and the winter track team is doing well. Newsies musicals, the tryouts were today. Semester 1 ends this Friday. Scheduling for the next year will be February 6th, and guidance will be meeting with grade levels 9 through 11. Seniors will be doing a Krispy Kreme fundraiser, and that information should come out tomorrow. There will be a winter dance soon. For Valentine's Day, Red Cross fundraiser will be selling flowers, and the freshman class fundraiser will be selling stuffed animals. The Highland Park Drama Club presents Channel Surfing, a one-act, which is a student-written play on February 4th. We will have an assembly on February 16th with professional step dancer Omar Edwards, and the class of 2023 senior prom will be on June 1st.
Thank you so much for your reports. Do any board members have questions?
Just about, yeah, thank you. That was fantastic. Really informative. What was the parent workshop about? I just missed it. I spaced out for a second. I forgot what you said it was. Was it on Wednesday the 25th? I mean, to put you on the spot. I just...
Yeah, it's from 1 to 3:30, and it's a parent workshop opportunity for all parents.
Do we know like what the topic is, or is it general topics?
It's general topics. Doesn't say a specific topic on here.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. We are now going to move on to the superintendent's report. We're going to start with our student spotlight. 3 students from our high school.
Thank you. Thanks, Allison. Okay, tonight I'm really excited. Now that I have the wireless microphone, it's so much easier. Tonight I'm really excited to welcome Mr. Michael Lassiter, our high school principal, who is with us virtually on Zoom. So you'll hear his voice come out of the speaker. I think if I can hook it up, I'll be able to get it on the screen there. Just give me 1 second to transition after I pass the virtual mic to Mr. Lassiter to recognize 3 high school students. For the students that are in person, I have certificates, so after Mr. Lassiter does his speech, you just want to come up and grab your certificate, and if you're open to taking a picture, that would be great too. Thank you. All right, Mr. Lassiter, the floor is all yours.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I am definitely there with my full heart and spirit. Hopefully you can hear me well. So I'm here. I'm also here with Ms. Ducey, who is one of the co-advisors of the peer mediation program. And we thought it was very important to kind of spotlight students in this program, which has been essential to our practice in the high school since I was just a new teacher in the middle school. I remember coming into the program and it already being in place. And Ms. Ducey has been involved in watching this program since she's come on board, and that was 20 years ago. So the program is part of our restorative approach when students have conflicts to try to get them to resolve their conflicts in such a meaningful way. And so we have 3 wonderful students that Ms. Ducey and her co-advisor, Ms. Powell, selected for us to honor tonight. Melinda and Felicia Chow and Shandu Yekum. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. And Ms. Ducey will be unmuting herself and sharing a little bit about their wonderful work helping to resolve conflicts. They've already mediated 4 tough mediations in December that without them, we couldn't have been able to get those students to resolve their conflicts. And since then, those students have been really coexisting and working together very well. So Ms. Ducey, the floor is yours to celebrate your great mediators.
Yes, so I'm here to, on behalf of Ms. Powell and I, just to say a few things about Felicia, Melinda, and Shandu. So everyone at some point in time is going to face some conflict. Resolving the conflict quickly and peacefully is the key to growth. Students may not possess these skills necessarily, and may need help to resolve their conflicts on their own, and our mediators are there to help facilitate that process. Our trained mediators go through extensive training on how to guide students through this process without solving the problem for them. Melinda, Alicia, and Shandu are this year's peer mediator leaders who volunteer their time to help give back to the Highland Park school community. Being a mediator isn't easy. They give up their time after school to train, not just themselves, but also to help train our newer members so that they can be great mediators as well. They do this while showing patience and professionalism to our newer members. They have great communication skills and are trusted by the students to keep their confidence. These students began their training right before COVID began and continue training through restrictions via Zoom. And maybe even conducting peer mediations on Zoom. So without these 3 peer mediators at the high school, peer mediation just wouldn't be possible this year. Over the past 2 years, they have helped to diffuse conflicts among their peers, making the school climate more peaceful without bias or prejudice. We can't thank these 3 enough for their commitment to improving their school community. And we just want to say congratulations to
Please come up to receive your certificate.
They're my photographers, so what's best?
Okay, we're now gonna,
Oh, can I get one? For those who already have access to downloaded the app, our new Highland Park app, or checked out the website, all of these wonderful pictures and postings go on there in our live feed and our news articles, so please, if you haven't checked it out, please do so, especially at the high school. The students in the fling are writing some of the news articles. They're really interesting. So I encourage you to please go on and continue supporting the students through the app or the website. Thank you.
okay, we're now going to move on to Dr. Nicosia's superintendent's report and the presentation on school start time.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next part of my meeting. The next part of the meeting, you're more than welcome to stay. However, if you need to leave, Mr. Lassiter, Ms. Ducey, thank you. Again, you're more than welcome to stay. Family, students, but here, yeah, no worries, no insult here if you need to leave. Okay. Our hybrid meetings can be challenging when presenting, so I'm going to try my best, but I did invite Mr. Keith Presti and Ms. Cheryl Magaziner to join me for the presentation. So I need to sit to move the presentation along, but I don't know if you two want to linger in this area, bring seats up, or sit next at the end there to join us, or not, or do you want to just stay for questions? It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with.
We're here for questions.
Okay, I'm trying to describe it for everybody at home what we have going on here.
I got seats here.
Okay. All right, so let me see if I can share my screen here. I'm going to minimize, oh wait, let me not minimize that, hold on. Hold on, oh no, what did I do? Hold on. Monique, can just, you're the first person you see, okay, the presentation? Yes, thank you, I just want to make sure. Okay. Minimize that, okay. All right, okay. Well, good evening, everybody. Tonight is a really important presentation. As you know through hopefully the communication that went out at the end of last week, we are going to be talking about some proposed school start times that we are requesting the board to consider as an agenda item tonight. And again, like I said, I've invited Mr. Presti and Ms. Magaziner to present with me and to answer any questions. And the reason being is this was a real team effort. So I just wanted to start by talking about our process, because I know this has been an ongoing conversation that we had a table last year just because we didn't have enough information and maybe the right people around the table to have the conversation. So this year, the central leadership team decided to take it on as their #1 project for the year. And just to remind yourselves, or reorient ourselves, the central leadership team is made up of district administrators, members of the Board of Education, union representatives, teachers, and support staff. So it really is a good mix of a lot of stakeholders and a lot of really
wonderful people sitting around the table solving the district's problems or coming up with solutions. So like I said, we met this year to tackle the school start time project. And after many meetings of what felt like going around in circles because there were a lot of issues to discuss, but really everything came down to transportation. Transportation was the major problem that needed the solution before we could really tackle anything else. So sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen can be a little problematic, and besides the fact that really there's only one most knowledgeable human of transportation in all of Highland Park Public School District, Ms. Cheryl Magaziner. So we really needed her input. So we invited her to be part of the central leadership team to really help us, quite honestly. So from there, Mr. Presti and I, who are co-managers or co-leaders of the central leadership team, so we co-run that particular team, we met and thought it would be great just to have a subset of people from the CLT to meet to talk about the transportation issue, just because we needed to come up with some solutions first that we could then bring back to the team. So myself, Ms. Hopela, our school business administrator, Mr. Presti, Ms. Magaziner, and I met several times and had several conversations about the proposed start times. We were able to come up with, thanks to really the work of Ms. Magaziner and Mr. Presti, some proposals that we could share back with the central leadership team. So we had a couple of options. We shared it with the central leadership team members, and those central leadership team members shared the proposals for input with the school leadership teams. And then we ran it through all the 4 buildings for staff input. Then we came back together, the central leadership team met again to review the input from the staff, and that was really important. Some other things, some constraints and considerations that were part of the process when we were making the options included the New Jersey Department of Education's QSAC requirements. And I believe I spoke about this last year when we were tackling the issue of the start times, and that is efficiency of our transportation runs. So we have to show for QSAC, for compliance purposes, that our routes are efficient. And for example, if it's a single run, we have to justify why it's a single run and they have to approve it. For example, the Marrowwald run has to be singled because only a small bus can go up there, a large bus can't, type of thing. So, you know, so there's things like that, and then they look and they say, yes, you're approved, and they approve us. So for the size of our school and the number of students that get courtesy transportation, it's double routes. So that sort of limits us on what we can do. The other consideration was that the current later start time for the high school students that was put in place many years ago is not an option for students who have to ride the bus. So I know we spoke about that a lot in terms of equity, that those students have no choice unless they get their own transportation or they take an unsafe route by walking to school, which we don't want them to do. So that was something that was a consideration that was really high on our radar. In addition, the collective bargaining agreements, we have 2 in the district, one through the Education Association, which is our teachers and support staff and secretaries, paras, etc., and then the HPAA, which is our admin contract. So both of those collective bargaining agreements, we had to look through to decide where were some of the constraints and where were some areas that we could be open to negotiation. We wanted to make sure that the later start times were for all students in middle and high school, because in the past the later start time for high school students was for first period, not 8 period students, in addition not for middle school, and the research suggests that it's really optimal for as close you can get to 8:30 for all adolescents. So we wanted to include middle school students in that mix. And one of the things that was a consideration and really almost a constraint to thinking about it was we had to, the adjustment of the elementary school start times to accommodate the change. Last year we were trying to propose options that wouldn't adjust Bartle and Irving, but really when we had to look at it, something had to give because of the other issues that we have on the table here, that an adjustment would need to be made to those times to accommodate this change. In addition, there's actually very little research, believe it or not, on elementary start times, other than they said that earlier start times don't hurt younger kids. That's all. So, and it helps them because they're up super early anyway, and apparently at Irving they come in and they talk about all the hours of shows that they've watched in the morning or what they've done in the morning before coming to school. So those were all the considerations and constraints. So based on that, like I said, we put a couple of options, which we don't need to share with everybody tonight. Those options, like I said, were sent out. We got plenty of feedback, and this is what we all came to a consensus. Is it making everybody happy, all staff? Probably not, but it was a good consensus around the table with most staff, so we were happy about that, and met all the other constraints and considerations that I just mentioned. So we'll start with Irving. This is the pre-K AM, kindergarten and first grade, and then pre-K PM, obviously end time. But the current schedule for those students is 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. and we would like to propose that it is adjusted 20 minutes to an earlier start time of 8:10 to being ending at 2:40. Bartle's current schedule is 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. and we are proposing to adjust it 15 minutes to have Bartle start at 7:45 a.m. and end at 2:15 p.m. Middle school, the current schedule is that all students start at 7:58 a.m. and they end at 2:50 p.m. We will be adjusting that slightly to the proposed schedule of 8:10 a.m. to 3 p.m. One of the considerations that came, we also have a shared staff, which I didn't put on there, for music and things like that. Sometimes more language, depending on how many classes, so keeping a middle school and high school start times would help with shared staff. So our high school current schedules, because we have two, the A period starts at 7:48 a.m. and obviously their day ends at 2:40 p.m. The current first period, if they don't have an A period, is 8:41 with an end time of 2:40. The proposed schedules for the high school would be A period would be 8:10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And spoiler alert, it matches the middle school start time and end time. And for first period, it would be 9:02. So we got them a little bit later too, which is beyond the 8:30, which we're really excited about, to a 3 p.m. end time. So the transportation matrix. And for those that can't see at home, Ms. Magaziner loves this. This is her favorite thing ever. So what we wanted to try to explain with how we got to this, it's very complicated. We will try our best. That's why Ms. Magaziner is here to answer any questions, because she does a better job of it than me. So I will try to do this justice, Ms. Magaziner. So the Bartle will start first with their buses. The bus will pick up at 7:20 a.m. The students will get dropped off at, oh, go ahead.
Go to the next screen.
Oh, and you want me to do it from here?
No,
The one with the picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that might be easier.
All right, let me jump ahead. Okay. So our yellow bus. Okay, yellow bus.
It's just that.
That's why I asked you to come co-present with me.
It's just that because it's two separate buses. Yeah.
Okay. So the yellow bus will start at Bartle at the Cedar Lane area at 7:20 at Cedar Lane. Only pick up Cedar Lane students at 7:20 a.m. and they will get students to Bartle by 7:40 a.m. That bus then goes back up and gets Cedar Lane and all the rest of the area, so all the students up there, to get the students to Irving starting at 7:45 a.m. and getting them dropped off to school by 8:05. The reason is Bartle has two routes because of the sheer number of students that take the bus for Bartle. So that's why it's Cedar Lane for Bartle, Cedar Lane and all the other area for the other schools. Then, after that bus gets dropped off at Irving, it will go back to Cedar Lane and the surrounding area at 8:25 a.m. and get the high school first period students to get them to school by 8:50 a.m. Okay?
It's so clear when you read it like that.
Well, we did a good job, Ms. Magaziner. The couple hours we spent hunkered down in my office really paid off for this presentation. The blue bus will start with Bartle students. We'll pick them up at Forest Glen and those additional stops, so we're just kind of blanketing that Forest Glen area, at 7:20 a.m. and get to the students to Bartle by 7:40 a.m. It will then go back up to Cedar Lane and that whole surrounding area to get all the students going to the middle school, and A period high school students at 7:50 to get them dropped off at 8:05. Genius.
So,
Insane.
yes, so all hail Miss Cheryl Magaziner, thank you so much. So transportational, I mean, we can go through that, but I don't think we even need that slide anymore. I don't think I need to go through that. What do you think, Cheryl?
No.
Yeah,
That slide confuses me.
Okay, I'm not going to use that slide because it confuses her. And I don't want to confuse her because we'll go down another rabbit hole. This is not easy work. So using this year's data on bus riders, it's possible that we will have too many students, which is over 54, on the bus for the middle school. However, not every student rides the bus. We have confirmation on that. And the bus that picks up students at the Marrowell development would have room for overflow. So if the question is what happens if, so honestly what we're doing with the genius of this is we are now providing choice to our bus students that they can either go to school for an 8-period class or come in for the first period class. They have choice. It obviously is predicated on the spots on the bus. However, we wanted to show that we've already thought that through, and there's options one way or the other. We're confident that it's probably not going to be a full bus. If it is, for whatever reason, we have overflow on the Marrowell route, because that only had 3-4 students or something like that. Like Marrowell isn't a lot, so we're really excited about that. All right, now going home.
That's a question about the bus.
Yeah, okay.
The Marrowell bus, is that a third bus, like an orange bus?
Well, Marrowell's complicated, so we didn't include that.
It's not those two.
It's not those two.
Got it, thank you.
No, Marrowell is really confusing.
That's enough data for me.
Yeah. But know that we have it on lockdown and we've already thought that through. All right, the day is over. Woohoo! Let's get back on the yellow bus and the blue bus. The yellow bus. Bartle will end school at 2:15 p.m. and would leave by 2:25 for the Cedar Lane route. Just those Cedar Lane students. The bus would then go to Irving after it drops off those students, pick up the students at 2:40 p.m., leaving school at 2:45 to drop off all bus students there. Then the bus would go back to the high school and pick up all bus students at the high school. The blue bus would, when Bartle ends school at 2:15, they would be bused and would leave by 2:25 for the Forest Glen and additional stops and drop those students off. Then that bus would go back to the middle school to pick up all those bus students. So really, like the middle and high school blend would only be for going in. It's not for going home. Okay, so the information is the Marrowell route is not included because we don't actually know the number of students, but it's very small.
And if in the district-wide, if it's more than a dozen, I would be surprised.
So because nobody at home can hear Ms. Magaziner because she's on the microphone, she said that the Marrowell bus, if it had a dozen students, we'd be really surprised. I mean, but we're looking at numbers like 3.
Yeah, and the bulk of them are, right now, we're at Irving, and the pre-K, I ran the addresses of pre-K students, and I think maybe there's one.
Okay, so the bulk of those Marrowell students that are Irving is what she's saying, and that she ran the pre-K numbers, and it's very, very, very minimal. So 1, yeah. So we're confident that the Marrowell will, but we don't know the numbers, but we're confident that one of those 2 situations will be okay. Another piece of important information to note is that full day preschool is not included. We have not included that in any of our bus calculations, and that is because we don't know our 5-year plan yet. We are working on our plan for September. Ms. Hopola, Megan McNally, and I have been meeting regularly. We are almost to a point where I think we have a plan, which we will present soon. Pending, and obviously all of this is actually pending the approval that our routes get picked up, which I'm sure is not a problem. We've never had a problem in the past. However, we did want you to know that that is some important information to know. So the sooner we get this approved, the sooner we know we can get the information to the commission so that they can put it out for bid for people to pick up our routes. Ms. Magaziner, do you want to say something?
Well, so the timing on that, the routes, the bids go out in May, and I promise you, whatever we decide, I will be as first in line as I could possibly be. It's true, from my knowledge, we've never been turned down, but it can happen. Other schools that contract from the commission, have not had buses
All year this year.
all year this year.
Yes.
So it's not a given
Correct.
at all.
So what she said is the bid openings in May, and she will be, regardless of what we decide for start times, she will be the first in line. She was this past year, and she will be this year to make sure our information gets first on that list. And what she wanted to say is that I know a couple of school districts in Monmouth County, for example, where I am, couldn't even get their buses picked up because of the shortage of bus drivers. Was a really big problem. So they are running without transportation altogether, Freehold Township, and I could name a bunch. So it wouldn't be because of our times, it would just be because of other factors, most likely a shortage of bus drivers to pick up the routes. But, you know, so that shouldn't impact anything, but it's important information to know when making an informed decision.
We have good relationships with our companies, so I'm not really anticipating, but we have to say that. We have to tell you that.
Yes, yeah, that's like the little asterisk on the bottom. You know, that Ms. Magazine was just saying that we have really great relationships with our bus companies and with the commission. Highland Park sits on the Board of Education at the commission. I represent the Board of Education, so we, you know, they do like Highland Park, and they, you know, but it doesn't mean that they can do all they can for us, but if there's no bus drivers, there's no bus drivers. But again, this is just the little asterisk on the bottom so that you were forewarned of all the information you need to make an informed decision. In addition, we did consider our high school and middle school students that do go to Irving to pick up their younger siblings. That's really important in this community and to us. And so I'm hoping, and I'm sure that I know I've talked to the Finance and Facilities Committee about this, about spending a little bit of money to staff Irving with extra paraprofessionals from 240 to 315 to give students enough time to get over to Irving after school to pick up their younger siblings. Ms. Magaziner has a wealth of knowledge as she worked at Irving for many, many years, and through her work with Transportation Now, she anticipates it's about plus or minus 20 kids. So it's not terrible. So depending on the number, one para, maybe two paras max to work for a little bit to watch those students until their older siblings come to get them. So we've kind of thought that out through a little bit. So what are our next steps? If the new proposed schedules are approved tonight or whenever, the sooner the better, just again for putting it out to bid. And another reason is we want to communicate to the community. If we're going to be changing even just a little bit, everybody needs to make plans. I don't know what everybody does before school or after school, but we want to make sure we give enough time for people to plan for this change. We'll send the transportation bids to the commission to get the routes picked up. We've already slightly started to begin talks, but we will begin negotiations between the Highland Park Board of Education, the Highland Park Education Association, and the Highland Park Admin Association on whatever might need to be sidebarred and to negotiate for the changes. In addition, the central and school leadership teams will then continue working to solve the other scheduling related problems, because believe it or not, it's not the only one. There are many, many more, but we can't move forward with those other things until we tackle this. Once we know the start and end times, and those are solidified and they're approved, and we know they're happening, then all the other pieces can start to fall in place. So this is a big piece to the puzzle. So that is it for the formal presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see the participants and board members. And like I said, for board members, I'll open it up to questions for you first. Knowing that I do have Mr. Presby and Ms. Magaziner in the audience, if there's any questions that they can answer. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ann.
So first off, thank you so much. I had no idea how complicated this was. I had some sense, but wow, it's just absolutely insane. And getting the sibling pickups in there too, that's just amazing. So I mean, I'm just really impressed. I gather this gets everybody to their sports events on time that they need to, more or less. Wasn't sports a big issue in the evening, in the afternoon?
Yeah, so I talked to Mr. Gervin, and he said that a 3 o'clock end time really wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Great.
He said it may require that our students either have to maybe get a few minutes late, or they might have to leave like school a little bit early to meet that time, but he said it won't happen too often because most other school districts end a little bit later anyway, so he doesn't foresee it being a problem.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm just really pleased. Of course, in my head, I was picturing like a half an hour here and a half an hour there, but I didn't realize we had such a constrained bus schedule. Good Lord, this is amazing. Chris?
Would it be possible to have a public comment about this issue first, and then board members could ask a question or two?
So we are going to open up for public comment after my presentation, but if you have specific questions that you wanted now, and then we can open up for public comment, and then I guess depending on the public comments, if Allison, if you want to open it up to the board after, before
I'll
committee
just
reports.
defer a question until
Okay.
after public comment.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So could I ask the both of you to stay until after public comment, just in case? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to move on to public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies number 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. Anybody in person? Okay. Jason Postelnick, you're up first.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First off, I do want to applaud you all for...
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just please state your name and address for the record if you're not a student.
Sure, I am definitely not a student, parent of a student in the district, and one that will be starting the district in September. So the full name, Jason Postelnick, address 606 Abbott Street, so just about a block and a half away from the high school. Where was the beginning? So I wanted to applaud you for your efforts to push back the middle and high school start times. I think that's a good idea. If anything, I'd like to see them push back a little bit further, I guess consistent with the research you indicated earlier, or I should say the research that indicated that a start time of 8:30 or later would be ideal. I have some questions and concerns about moving up the start time for Irving and Bartle. So the superintendent had stated earlier that kids are often up early and just doing stuff for hours before even getting to Irving. As a parent of a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, I can assure you that it's definitely not always the case. That may be the case with some kids, but definitely not all. I have an 8-year-old in Bartle who struggles with this 8 o'clock start time, which seems foreign to me. I went to school in New York City, and all of my school started at 9 o'clock. And even that was a struggle at times. So I definitely think there are some kids that are going to be harmed by not being able to get enough sleep, even if they're not in the middle in high school. As you stated yourself, that there wasn't necessarily a lot of research in this area, so we don't really know. But I can assure you that right now it is definitely a struggle, and will be a struggle going forward, especially as my daughter gets older, and I guess more of those other issues, where she starts approaching adolescence. I don't imagine it's going to be easier for her to get up and get to school before 8 o'clock, which just, again, it just seems unconscionable to start school or like that early. I have definitely talked to other parents who also are not thrilled about the potential earlier start times for Irving and Bartle. Although I do have one suggestion. On my own experience, if anyone could maybe handle an earlier start time, it'd probably be the younger kids. Why don't we flip Irving and Bartle? Or alternatively, why don't we, another suggestion would be, why don't we push back all these new proposed times back 15 minutes, so we basically preserve where Irving and Bartle are, and then get the middle and high school students like more than a 10 or 20 minute additional time to sleep. That you probably get more actual value out of it. And that's another thing that you indicated, most other high schools apparently are letting their kids out later, which probably suggests that they're also starting a little bit later. So I don't know why we're exceptional in the regard that we have to have such an early schedule. Another point would be right now, I don't understand why there's transportation issues or all these logistical issues now that we're gonna maybe move back the middle school 10 minutes and the high school like 20 minutes. When right now all of the school schedules are bunched together, they're like maybe 10 minutes apart, if I was reading it correctly. So why do we now need to space out Irving and Bartle so that they're like 45 minutes apart from the older schools' start times? So, I mean, I know that you all worked really hard, and like there was a lot of things that I'm not privy to and a lot of considerations I couldn't possibly factor in. But I do want to implore that there maybe be some room for keeping Irving and Bartle to a little bit more of a reasonable realm of start time. Maybe, like, I know there's a couple of other options, I guess, that we're talking about. Maybe there's some wiggle room that it doesn't have to be, so extreme. It just, 7:45 just seems kind of too much. I think I covered all the points I want to say, but I definitely want to say, I think there's going to be some kids that are not going to be getting enough sleep. And then if we keep these other kids that are getting up early, they'll be fine if they go to school a little bit later. But there definitely going to be some kids that are going to be harmed if they are forced to get up even earlier. So I probably spoke enough. Those are.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm kind of passionate about this. Again, I definitely applaud moving in the direction of pushing back middle and high school and many of the initiatives that you put forward. Overall, generally very, very happy, but this one can support the Irving and Bartle start times.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
comments. Okay, I am going to be giving a 3-minute limit for a public comment moving forward. I should have said that at the beginning. Sorry, it's my first time. Yes.
The second one is open.
The second one will be open. So we're definitely going to take your considerations, and I think that is something that we will discuss after public comment, some of the parent concerns. The one issue that I think we had, I was just going to say that we did talk about the buses, that the bus issues, even though the times of the school are close together, the high school had an issue where the students that did not take a period that were being bused had to arrive 45 minutes early and sit. So the reason that we had to move the busing around was to address that equity issue. Daniel Mladnick?
Hi, thank you. Dan Mladnick, 216 Graham Street, Highland Park, New Jersey. And I just wanted to say, I'm really happy to see that you solved that issue for the bus students. That was such a concern, and it's so great to see that you figured out a solution to it so that those students will have that choice. So, thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay. Chris?
Sure. Well, I also was really happy to see the movement on this issue. So thank you to everyone that worked on this after so many years. I really think this is substantial progress. I do think the community maybe deserves to hear a little bit more about why it's not possible to push times back even more. One issue that came up in discussions, I remember, was that we would need to renegotiate several contracts to go substantially further. Another issue is just if a lot of the staff, there's a teacher shortage right now. We really need to keep as the staff as happy as we can. We can't afford to lose anyone. And that's another issue in my mind. I don't know if Dr. Nicosi would like to comment on that.
Well, I was going to say part of that is that balance. A part of the conversation was, we don't want to get the students out way too late. Not only, it might impact extracurricular activities locally in-house, but also our students are involved in a myriad of things outside of the school, independent of the school, that have different start times. So we were cognizant about that. But our staff too. Our staff are, have their kids, they have families, they have commutes, they have jobs outside being, you can all see everybody's salaries. They have, other things to do outside of the district as well. And actually, what was really important when we talked about it was sort of, what could we do in which we could adjust the times without sacrificing instructional time, but that the staff would be okay with and agree to, without a major upheaval of a revolt. Not that they would, but just that idea of we really were trying to be collaborative here with a give and take. So to me, it was all about collaboration and seeing what are the things that were sort of non-negotiable for either side. And for the Board of Education and myself as a district goal, the non-negotiable was how late can we possibly get the start times as close to 8:30 as possible. That was really the non-negotiable on our side. Obviously, I guess financials and things like that would be another consideration, but that was really first and foremost. So when Keith and I met often to talk about this, and I appreciate the board members that were on this CLT too to speak of it, that was part of the consideration. So there were a bunch of those factors in there to make sure that it was palpable. The other thing I wanted to address was about some of the other options for scheduling. I want to applaud personally all the staff at Bartle Elementary School. One of the options we had was a flip-flop where it had Irving starting much, much earlier. Bartle's actually wasn't changing, and then we had a middle high school option. Like I said, we had a couple of options. We ran them through our school leadership team, and Bartle came back and said, listen, we obviously don't want our times to change. We all like our schedule, we're used to our schedule, our childcare revolves around our schedule, everything is great about our schedule. However, look at what Irving has to do. It was a significant change for Irving, really significant for the time. And they did not, they're like every other building would have to adjust except for us. Well, that's not very kind to our colleagues. So if we pick this option, it's about 10 or 15 minutes plus or minus per building. Every building slightly changes versus one building have to change really dramatically. So I just want to applaud, Franny Drackman was really big as our Bartle's representative to the central leadership team. She really did a lot of behind the scenes work, went to every single Bartle teacher and staff member to talk to them, and para and secretary and everything. And so I want to applaud the staff at Bartle for really putting their colleagues first as well in other buildings to make sure that these things were sort of equitable for that too. So, the transportation was the biggest piece of the puzzle. The equity was another big piece of the puzzle. And there is a shift to everybody, but it's just a little bit here and there. And enough time at 3 o'clock at the latest for our middle and high school that they can still participate in sports without it being a big major concern. They can participate in activities without being a major concern. There's a couple things that the BOE and HPA will negotiate in terms of some slight adjustments, but nothing too crazy that will cause any major issue in our opinion. So I wanted to address those things. Thank you.
I got a question, Anne?
Yeah, Chris, I just, that was exactly the question I had. Why can't we just move the whole shebang up? And that makes sense. Of course, we have staff that have to commute back to their homes, get their kids from daycare. So it's not just our community, which I sort of forgotten about. No offense. So that made sense to me. Thank you. What was my other question? I just wanted to extend my sympathy to Mr. Postling, who spoke before. I immediately forgot how to pronounce it. I mean, I would have been miserable when my kids were little too, having to get up that early. But the research says it's really, really important for adolescents and tweens. So I would have been miserable, but it would have been for a good cause. But I sympathize. It's not good for everybody. It really is not. So thank you for tolerating it. Cheryl, sorry, Cheryl say?
No, I was just going to say,
Cheryl needs a microphone. There we go.
I feel like I'm like the proxy for Cheryl tonight. That's okay.
Yeah.
So the issue was, talking to the microphone, we started with the end time for the high school and middle school. And that was the pivot point. From there, everything kind of has to fall into place. The buses need 20 minutes, 15 if we push it. Like the Cedar Lane, if they're just stopping at one place, they can go back and forth in 15 minutes. So that really was the key, is just picking a start and end time, an end time for the high school, and everything kind of fell from there. So that's how urban and rural end up where they are. Yeah, because we can't run, not every school can start at the same time because the buses have to go back and forth for everybody. It's just the way it is here. So I do sympathize with people who like to lounge around in the morning, believe me. But that really was the king.
Thank you. The backwards design model really helped.
Yeah.
Any other? Thank you to our parents who are going to put up with this, even though they don't like it. It's really hard.
I think one of the benefits of having this turnout so early in January is that if it is approved, or we have time to plan as parents, as teachers, as board members. So that gives us plenty of time to kind of get our affairs in order to adjust.
I know we have at least one board member that has a lengthy commute to work, and also has children, so we feel your pain. Not much help.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
I just want to publicly thank you as well. This is something I've been, pre-board as a parent, really been pushing for a long time. Especially the equity issue with those poor kids who had to be bused to the high school so early and just sat there for 45 minutes waiting for school to start. So of all the things, I love that you started with high school end times and backed up for I also sympathize with the early morning parents. I do have a Bartle child who saw the new times and was like, even those 15 minutes are going to be tough for the kids below him, but he'll be in middle school next year. So, but thank you very much.
See, that's the other thing, is that these issues for people, it's like a couple of years, and then you're on to the next
Right,
one.
right.
It feels like forever, though.
I know, I was there again.
No, I know, quickly though. I mean, we're halfway through the year already. Sorry. So I just want to make sure to offer to our student reps if they have any comments. I know you typically don't speak, but I do want to offer as high school students, if you have any comments.
I mean, personally, I find it great for the students because I remember sometimes I come in during A period and I'd see the kids who come in like 45 minutes early and sit around and basically do nothing. I just sit in the auditorium sometimes or just roaming the halls, and I feel really bad for them because it's like, what are they doing for that entire time? So it's really great that they're not going to have that issue anymore. And I think that the extra 20 minutes will help a lot of students because I know, especially this year, we've had a lot of kids walking in pretty late to like A period, first period, but it would be just like a couple minutes or like 10 minutes. So I think that these extra like 20 minutes will probably help them a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's good that they will be able to like have an option whether they want A period or not. And I also think that it's good that make more people like less late if we start later. And I think it's also good that the extracurriculars are not going to be affected much.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no other comments or questions. We're going to move on to committee reports. First one is curriculum instruction, and that is me, so I will start. Curriculum and instruction met on January 10th. It was Dr. Nicosia, myself, Michelle and Mark. First thing we looked at was Schedule B proposals for fall 2023, should be. So some of our extracurriculars, robotics, balanced Bartle, data dialogue, and those three submitted requests for having their hours and rating factors adjusted. And so those were kicked over to finance to review in addition. The Thespian Society was one that was denied because of the amount of money it would have been for the fee and the ceremony and those things. So we asked for more details and they are to come. The second thing that we looked at was new course proposals, which would be English seminars for seniors. These proposals came from student interest. So a survey went out, students were given options to choose from, but were also able to offer ideas for English seminars they would like to take. The idea is to kind of really encourage students to get invested in reading and literature while they're in their senior year of high school. So instead of one course for the whole year, they would take one course each term. 300 students responded, which is amazing. And we had 4 courses as the final choices: nonfiction and documentaries, graphic novels, murder mystery and mayhem in literature, and contemporary global voices. So seniors would be able to choose 2 of the 4 options. If students were taking AP Lit, they can also choose these courses as electives. If successful, these courses might be expanded to some 11th graders for a potential combined class of juniors and seniors. The other course proposed was a high school English elective, which is language of film. There is currently language of film 1. This current class has a lot of interest in extending that to language of film 2 for another semester. We also have a high school music elective proposed, the exploration of music in modern society. So this would not be a performance-based music class, but really just for students that have an interest in learning more about music. It would be different types, different cultural music, different areas, so really learning about all the different genres of music. And in middle school, we have a course proposal for personal financial literacy. This is now a state mandate requirement. The standards need to be taught in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So Ms. Saka and Ms. Rodriguez looked at the standards taught in 6th and 7th grade math and some of the social studies standards and created this 1 semester course for 8th graders. The benefit of this course is it would help prepare students for their high school financial literacy course. There's no update on the proposed high school graduation credit change. That is still in the works. For our policies, we looked at attendance. We had some concerns about the language of attendance or looking at excused attendance being linked to loss of credit, and the policy on that, and to review the language and make some changes. On the agenda, curriculum instruction, we have the approval of field trip requests. There's 1 middle school, 1 Bartle, 2 high school trips, and we are adding, or the request is for 2 additional chaperones for a high school trip. Second is approval of HIP reports, incident BS 22304, BS 222305, BS 222306. The approval of the memorandum of understanding with the NJPSA and FEA. We also have the approval of university graduate students and students for teaching internships and junior practicum observation. There are a lot of them, which is very exciting, not only for our students, but also for recruitment efforts. So we're going to have lots of new faces, and we're excited to be able to, maybe recruit them. Number 5 is the approval of the new courses I just described. Number 6 is the approval of the new district start times. And number 7 is the approval of home instruction for students 2223009, 2223010, and 2223011. Any questions? Okay, equity and excellence?
Could I actually ask a procedural question? Monique, I know you're next. My computer's about to die and has 6% battery. I see personnel is last. Any chance I could zip ahead? Is that allowed?
I can yield.
Oh, wait, I think it just died. Never mind then.
Do you want to come over here and some blood?
Oh, yeah, I'll come over here. Oh, you know what? I have a phone. I'll do that later. Yep, I'm good. I don't have a cord. That was my problem.
Oh, okay.
I thought it would last for a couple hours. But anyway, I'll have a phone. Never mind. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, so before I start on the Equity and Excellence report, I did want to just comment really quick on the curriculum report. Really just how, as you said, remarkable it was to have 300 students complete that survey. And that's like the overwhelming, almost the entire student body, which is incredible. So initially my thought was, okay, well, what's the demographic breakdown of the students who complete the survey? I think that's still good data to have, but the fact that we're talking about almost all of the student body is quite encouraging. But do we have the demographic breakdown of the responses?
We did not have that, but we can definitely get it for you.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, that'd probably just be good practice generally, but yeah, very encouraging and good to hear. Go ahead, and then pull up Equity and Excellence. So yes, Equity and Excellence met this past Thursday, the 19th. And one of the items we did discuss, you already covered in curriculums report on the Schedule B proposals and those thoughts, I won't get into that. We also had, Dr. Nicosia did present another topic that will be on personnel's agenda tonight for vote, and that is our youth safety specialist position and potential hiring of a candidate for that position. Dr. Nicosia just went into a little bit more detail into the background of the candidate, as well as, we had some questions about what the responsibilities of the youth safety specialist would be beyond, sort of helping to maintain, order and to help to keep the hallways and classrooms secure. Dr. Nicosia reported that the person will be trained in restorative practices, 2 full days of RP training, and then would receive ongoing PD in RP, which will be provided by Ms. Luxka. Dr. Nicosia also said that there will be the expectation that the youth safety specialist will implement Tier 2 and Tier 3 and or Tier 3 interventions, either group sessions, or in a larger group, small group or larger group interventions to support students with positive behaviors. So that was encouraging to hear. These details weren't included in the job posting description, so I think that's something that, as an equity concern, we're pleased to hear in the committee and would like to make sure we see that being implemented in this role. We also discussed, actually I think that was it for this particular item. And as I said, Schedule B proposals were already discussed, and then we also had an update on the AP and Honors Cohort Accessibility Committee. Dr. Nicosia reported that she met with Kara Young and Lisa Saka, who've been sort of taking the lead on this work. They had recently conducted focus groups and meetings with teachers and a few students, and found that there were some students who had been encouraged to take higher classes and did indeed take higher level classes and were struggling in those classes or are struggling in those classes. Administration is looking into tutoring and additional supports for these students, but they did acknowledge that some of the students may have to retake classes. It was also noted that most of the struggling students were invited to attend the summer program but did not attend. I believe the turnout was very low for that program. So I know we had asked for some numbers, how many students are we talking about out of the total number of students that did fall in that category of taking that leap to higher level courses, and Dr. Nicosia will get back to us on that. But she is, and administration is certainly thinking about ways to really boost up the support for these students. And also, Dr. Nicosia said administration is looking at ways to really focus in on the lower grades as well, and preparing students to have a growth mindset, working on climate and cultural belonging at the younger grades to help better prepare students when they do get back to that high school level when it comes to taking challenging course loads. Another point that Dr. Nicosia shared, looking at the data, administration noticed that comparing and analyzing the math and humanities AP honors data, overall students are doing better in humanities, and we're talking about, again, those students who did sign up for AP or honors course for the first time, and I don't think that was too surprising that they were seeing some more positive results grade-wise and certainly just overall in terms of their performance in humanities as opposed to math. So administration is working on dissecting that data a little bit more to help determine what needs to happen to help promote the success, particularly in those math courses when providing challenges, especially given the way that math really is cumulative. And so thinking about ways to support students who are making that leap. So ongoing work. We look forward to getting, again, a little bit more of a sense of how many students we're talking about who are struggling. I know one of the issues we also talked about is it's really struggling, the difficulties with moving into a different class because of the scheduling concerns, or challenges, I should say, and that's something, again, that we had talked about early on, and Jen had brought it up in our discussion. So that's, again, something that administration will continue to look at to see, again, what sort of wiggle room can be provided for students who may need to backtrack on those decisions. Then we also talked about the preschool expansion 5-year plan, and we've got a couple updates here. Dr. McCloser reported that registration is still slated to open in February, and the registration at that point will, also help administration sort of gauge and determine the level of interest in the preschool program, the expanded program, and then again, the plan is still to move forward with the small group in September. There's one local child care facility, Yellow Brick, that did indicate that they're willing to participate. They have 2 classrooms available. But there are some code issues with their classrooms that would have to receive a waiver in order to be approved for. But that is one facility that is willing to partner with us. Administration is working on having 60 full-day spots open for September. And they will be doing a feasibility study to determine where the additions may be added to Bartle and Irving pursuant to a possible referendum for building additional spaces in those buildings. Early intervention students will be receiving first priority. Students on free or reduced lunch will get next priority. Then beyond that, anything beyond that, the number of available spots would then go to a lottery. And then rolling admissions. Current 3-year-olds, which are basically our early intervention students, would be grandfathered in under this plan as well. So, nuts and bolts are starting to kind of fall into place and come together, but it's still a work in progress in figuring that out. The exciting part is just now registration will be open soon to again, see where we are in terms of interest level and get a better sense of the numbers. And then we looked at discipline data reports. There were actually 2 reports that Dr. McCloser presented, and the first set of data we looked at were our peer mediation and restorative practices reports. And so essentially, Dr. McCloser just provided us frequency counts. So we looked at how many restorative actions were actually implemented at each school. Irving, we won't include there because they don't actually have restorative practices, but again, they are included in the report. So we see 0s for Irving, but looking at Bartle Middle and High School, we noticed that our middle school had the highest number of restorative actions implemented, with numbers as high as 97 in October, 78 in September, and 60 in December. Bartle also had pretty high numbers of restorative practices or actions that were implemented slightly less than middle, but 48 in October, 32 in November, and 39 in December. High school did not report any restorative actions, and I think there was a question as to whether that was just an issue of the data not being reported, but not necessarily a reflection on no restorative actions being taken. And just for clarification, we do understand that restorative actions are inclusive of the conferences, the circles, even other repairing of harm actions like writing a letter, additional supports that are provided. So that's really an umbrella term. So those numbers that are included in the chart really do include multiple types of restorative actions. So we asked for future reports to, possibly, sort of break out, how many restorative circles and circles and conferences were conducted at each school, and then also looking at some of the other sort of restorative actions that were provided. And the extent to which recommended circles and conferences were actually taken up by students, because we know that these are not mandatory, these are just recommended. So it's nice to also be able to compare that data. So we thank Dr. Koshe again for obliging the committee with beginning this new practice of reporting out to us the data and just collecting the data for one. As we talked about, we hadn't even been collecting the data on this work. And I think, clearly, obviously, we need to be doing that. That's the way we assess and can monitor our progress and pivot where needed. We did not actually, because we ran out of time, we did not get to dig into discipline data. So that's going to be a conversation we'll have in our next meeting. But the idea here is, again, that we had Dr. Nicosia present at a table with literally just looking at the numbers, so how many in-school and out-of-school suspensions occurred at each school for the past 3 months, September, October, November, I believe in this case, and basically focusing in on the demographic breakdown. So the data does show clear disparity, disproportionality by race and special education status. And this is something that is not, new to us, and it's certainly something that we see in many school districts. So we're not alone in this issue, but it is a serious equity issue that I think, hopefully bringing this data, this broader demographic data, we can't certainly talk about individual students and discipline reports, but we can look at our data on a global level and really start, again, discussing in committee ways to make sure that we're doing everything we can to best support our most vulnerable students and to close these extreme gaps in disproportionality in our rates of disciplining, particularly, again, ISS and OSS. So that our most vulnerable students are better supported. So we'll be able to discuss that a little bit more next time when we meet again and discuss that data. And we do plan on doing that periodically every 3 months or so. And that'll also just, I think, help the board figure out ways to best support administration. And again, the work that you're already doing, as Dr. Nicosia reported, the leadership team does meet monthly to review all discipline data, and I assume the peer mediation and restorative data as well, and sort of discuss and problem solve ways to address these issues. So that is that, and then policies always manages to be at the bottom of our list, but we do need to look at we did already look at the updated attendance policy, and I think no major red flags, and there were marks and things up, and we'll be ready to move that along. And that's it.
Okay, any questions for Equity and Excellence?
Can I make a comment? Yeah, no, thanks, Wendy. I mean, I think one thing, I want to be always on the lookout for ways that we can help the administration, are there things the board can do to fund ways that we might be able to close some of these gaps. I mean, a lot of times I find that we ask you, well, how come this person has suspension? How come that person has suspension? And I mean, part of it has to be that we don't have enough staff to sit down and have one-to-one counseling with every student, that's having a crisis. So I hope that you'll continue to tell us what you need in order for the administration to do some of the things that we push for.
More money.
More money.
More money. I mean, honestly, some of our biggest challenges right now, actually, when you start to look at the budget soon, is going to be our challenges staffing for special education. Just this past couple months alone, actually the month of October, November, I believe, we had upwards up to 40 in 1 month, 40 new special ed students, either that were classified or came into the district. 40, I mean, we had like 7 in 1 day in Bartle, in 1 day. So we are plus a lot now at Irving, especially now that we're seeing from the pandemic and things like that with speech and the masks and all that. So it's the sheer number of special ed students is exorbitant. I also, I'm open to it. Professional development money is not a problem. We have a lot of it. What we're working on now is to provide more professional development in that area and finding the appropriate professional development
for the staff to be better equipped to handle doing more of this work. So, we'll look at the budget and we'll look to see where we might be able to find some money to do it, but I'm not sure that I'm positive, given our projections for special education alone, that there's much wiggle room for more staffing in that area, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I know that you guys in the budget, and the Finance and Facilities Committee will look into that carefully. Budget is a moral document, obviously, and we wanted to express our values, of course, as much as we can without bankrupting the district. Thank you.
Can I just add, one of those challenges was going to be that the state will probably cut the teen center funding a year from now. And so we have to find a way to, in effect, fund that ourselves this year, if we can, so that funding will continue in future years. And that's a real dilemma, that's a really problem, because that would just get us equal to what we are now.
So just maintaining our current
Yeah, just to maintain that such an important function for the school system.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but just so everyone is aware, that's really a problem for us. It's going to be a problem.
It is, and unfortunately, who gets hurt the most, harmed the most, and that is our most vulnerable students who need the most support. So that's something I just want to, try to keep on the radar as we try to figure this out as creatively as we can.
I mean, I know that restorative practice isn't a magic word. It doesn't just sort of like take care of all our problems, but we did have a consulting group that we worked with for a time period several years ago, international something, restorative.
IRP?
I guess so, IRP. Excuse me. I wonder if they have professional development that could sort of serve as a reinvigoration device, or is it incredibly expensive? I'm sure it is incredibly
I mean, it's expensive, but we have, Title IIA money is not our problem for professional development.
Okay.
Sometimes it's a lack of subs to cover, to get our teachers to attend PD. Has been a challenge. There's a myriad of factors. It's getting subs to attend, to cover for the teachers to go. We have teachers that are interested that are signing up. IRP is hit or miss depending on the person implementing it. So what we found from that particular group is that if you have a really good presenter, it's really powerful. It's not to say that the other presenters aren't great, but other presenters focus on like restoration if there's harm versus sense of belonging, culture, and climate with that additional piece.
Right.
And our focus has really been on sense of belonging, strengthening community, because sometimes it's students just not feeling like they belong as part of a community. So I'm talking about tier 1 intervention with the teachers in the classroom, right? That tier 2 and 3 are outside of that realm, outside of sort of like the teachers, depending, plus or minus, right? Depending on what the situation is and the harm that was, whether it's a low-level harm or high-level harm, tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. So we have a bunch of other options for professional development. Our admin and staff are taking advantage of it. So we are seeing some movement in there. I have met with Anne Gregory several times.
Oh, great.
She's reviewed the survey data with me, and I did some one-legged interviews. I've done some focus groups. I've done a myriad of data collection, historical data collection, because that was important in terms of the implementation that was really done. So she's helping me work through that so that I can put a presentation to present it to the entire board on the history of RP, current RP practices, and what the future holds for how we want to move forward based on what our constraints and considerations are, and how we move forward as a district based on all of that data. So I'm really wrapping my head around it with Dr. Gregory's work, so I really appreciate her volunteering her time to help me with that.
Yeah, that's invaluable.
Yes.
That's
Thank you, Anne, if you're here. If you're listening, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate.
Yeah, so we are working on it. It's just, like I said, it's not, like you said, it's not an overnight fix. It's a mind shift change. It's a cultural shift that has to happen. And it takes a lot of buy-in. It takes a lot of buy-in, and those things, take time. So, but I think that Dr. Gregory will put together a solid plan that I'll be really confident about to share, that I think everyone, with, by the way, to Monique's point, when we talked about data collection,
that was one of my findings, was that when this was implemented, by previous administration, that was probably not part of the consideration. But anytime you implemented any kind of new initiative, you have to have that data collection and monitoring, and it just wasn't happening. And if it was, like the discipline data was, but not the restorative data was, right? So just little things like that we can put, those systems and processes into place to move us forward through this sort of little implementation dip that we're experiencing here. So I'm confident that we can move forward in the right direction. I just need a little bit more time to put everything together and wrap that up into like a little package and bow and put it forth, something that I'm confident to share with everybody.
Thank you for putting so much into it. I appreciate that. Obviously we need to get out of this chicken and eggs situation where, we feel like the only remedy we have is an out-of-school suspension. That sort of, alienates people from the community, but what else are we going to do? Maybe is the thinking when there's nothing else there available for us. I'd like to say, let's stop all suspensions right now. I would imagine that staff are sort of hard up for remedies in some cases. And I just thank you for trying to come up with a more comprehensive strategy moving forward.
Yeah, and I just want to echo, just to say, we are so fortunate to have Anne Gregory, a national expert in this, right here in Highland Park, and is, pretty much willing, as you said, to work with you and support and continue to support the district. She's worked with us in the past, and so I'm glad to hear that you have been in contact and communicating with her. I know in Equity and Excellence, our next meeting, we'll be, again, looking more at the data, talking more about other things that can be done in ways that we can think outside of the ISS-OSS pattern and cycle that we are certainly not the only ones getting into, but that's sort of where we are. But I think also we'll be discussing a really great article recently that was out that presented some cumulative sort of evidence-based data on restorative practices. And Anne Gregory was heavily cited in this particular article, and I think it's very informative and something that, again, the board needs to really be better versed in as well as we're trying to support the administration in doing this work. So we'll be having that discussion in Equity and Excellence, and looking forward to sharing with everyone else so that we can really kind of put our eyes together and do what we need to do to, again, really protect those students that need our protection and support more than what they may be receiving now.
Monique, can you share that article with everybody? Could you mind sharing it?
Oh, sure, certainly.
Thanks. Maybe you already did and I missed it, sorry.
I may have only sent it to Equity and Excellence, so I'll be sure I share it out to the board, but it will also be included in our next meeting notes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, Finance and Facilities?
So let me do the read-ins first. So number 9, item Zimmer's date of travel should be February 2nd, 2023. On number 10, professional services, the added item is New Jersey Teacher to Teacher, coaching, consulting, and workshop sessions, 2 full days for $1,500 each time, three times. Number 17, the Bartle electrical service upgrade, the amount is $135,000. And the approval of proposal for architectural engineering services for Bartle electrical service upgrade and classroom unit ventilator replacement should read, shall I read the whole thing? I move that the Board of Education accept the recommendation of the superintendent to accept a proposal from DMR Architectural Services for architectural and engineering services related to Bartle Elementary School electrical service upgrade and classroom unit ventilator replacements for NJ Schools Development Authority, regular operating district, grant application preparation, and project management in the amount of TBD. We still don't have an amount for that. Oh, that was the amount at the, for the 130. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, so we met last week and began with a discussion of the finance of the district's efforts to expand pre-K, universal pre-K enrollment. As Monique said, there are a couple of different options. The state is claiming they're going to support the operating costs, but finding the space and the transportation So it's a wonderful opportunity, but there are costs associated with the program. If we go the route of using, so far only one local program has offered a space, that's the Yellow Brick Road that was mentioned. And in addition to the space, extra space that we could find at Irving, that would be enough to run the program for some students, but probably not all. And the other option is to do something like a bond issue, which, we could build space for everybody, but then the question is, if we spend all the money and the state changes their mind about whether they're willing to provide funding for it going forward, then we would have wasted the money for the new space. So if members of the community have thoughts about our thinking, feel free to let us know. We discussed several Schedule B proposals, the expansion of the high school robotics team to allow for more competition, and the Bartle Yoga, so expansion, we're recommending those for approval. The Board of Health had sent us recommendations for considering installing vape detectors in the bathrooms. Unfortunately, they're more expensive than we realized. They're $1,000 each. So if you think about all the bathrooms that would have to be in, it's a pretty big expense. And then we discussed whether to approve Chromebooks, issuing Chromebooks for the second and third graders. We looked at all the things that they're using them for. The teachers strongly support that, so we're recommending that as well. Okay, so the agenda items. There's the approval of the bill list. Number 5, treasurer's report. The 7, the Board of Education certifications, budget transfers, the approval of the travel and related expenses report, and the number 10, the contractor that we already have an item for. So inspired instruction, professional development, data group, ABA consultative services, nursing services, professional development, the assemblies from Colicious, physical therapy, and transition services per IEP. Number 11 is the approval of out-of-district placements, one for Collier and another for Collier. 12 is the bedside instruction. 13 is the submission of the grant amendment for Title 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 14 is the approval of submission for the IDEA grant amendment. And similar for 15, the maintenance needs grant, item 16, architectural engineering services for Bartle Electrical Service. We talked about approval of the Irving and high school roof replacements for the architectural engineering services is 18. 19 is the feasibility study for the possible expansion that we mentioned. And 20 is the immediate care service agreement. 21 is the Italian termination. I think there's a committee looking at the replacement, and so we should know news about the replacement shortly. And 22 is the approval of funds to capital reserve. Any questions?
Just real quickly, excuse me, sorry, joking. Would you remind us what bedside instruction is? Is that for students who are actually in an institution, in a facility? Okay, I see. Thank you. And they're not taught by our teachers, right? They're taught by staff at the facility?
It depends.
Oh, okay, either one. Okay, thank you.
Quick question, under the contract for professional services, the last one, the NJ teacher consulting and coaching, that PD is on what exactly?
So that's going to be funded under Title I, and that's to provide instructional coaching for teachers on differentiated instruction.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to communication.
All right, here we go. Excuse me. Excuse my interjection from before. I have my phone here. Let's see. Let me go over the agenda items first, and then I'll mention a couple of extras. Almost everything is self-explanatory. Approval of source for teachers, approval of some leaves of absence for various employees, an extension of a leave of absence, leaves of absence. I'm moving on to number 11. Number 11 is an approval of a sidebar agreement with a new recommended position, a new recommended hire for the position of youth safety specialist at the middle school. We already have a youth safety specialist, Mr. Harrison, at the high school, and the administration is proposing that we hire one now for the middle school. So there's a sidebar agreement to settle his salary and things of that nature. Number 12 is the recommended approval of Mr. Marcel Yarborough as the middle school safety specialist. Let's see. We have a resignation of a school psychologist who is on one particular grant, and the administration is recommending that we hire her as our interim school psychologist as she moves from one place to the next. So she will still be a school psychologist, but serving a more general function. And why is she an intern? Is that because she's still getting credits, or?
She is filling the position that for resignation for the Lakes Middle School Child Study Team kids worker until we can hire a permanent replacement for that position.
I see. So she's interim school psychologist for the Links.
For the Links program at the middle school. She's been working with them under the CCEIS grant funding, so she knows them and has really good relationships with the students. So, but I'm not sure if she wants to continue on beyond this year.
I see.
So, but we want to hire her in the district. We do have another opening at the high school, but we've been filling that with a contracted person. Mm-hmm. So in the event that we could find a permanent replacement for the middle school position, we can move Kathleen to the high school position or wherever Dee Dee needs her, to suit the best needs of the students. But that's why it's interim until we find the right fit.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you. We have a resignation, a transfer. I'm on page 13 now. Moving to number 18, a resignation, additional instructional assignments. Thank you so much to our staff who are taking on extra assignments, because we have at least a couple of unexpected leaves of absence. So it's just very hard to find qualified substitutes. So we really appreciate all these staff members, many staff members, taking on extra periods. Let's see. Mr. Carter is being recommended to be the STEM Academy Advisor for the middle school. Is that a new function?
It is under the ESSER 2 Learning Acceleration Grant for an enrichment program.
So that just started?
Yes.
Is that particular?
Well, we'll start at the end of the month.
Okay, cool. Great, thank you. Okay, number 22 is after-school treatment meetings for the ABA team. I understand our program is growing. We have another tuition-paying student coming in. Dr. Nicosia mentioned that we had some recognition in the county for how well the program is doing, so that's wonderful. Let's see, 25, 26. Sorry, almost everything is self-explanatory.
We were reading for 26.
Oh, you were reading for 26.
I gave you the paper.
You gave me the what?
I gave you a paper.
You gave me a paper. I don't have a paper, but, here's a paper.
Yes, you were sitting there.
Yeah, usually I sit there. Okay, sorry, number 26 is staff and professional development. Are these are staff that are presenting, or staff that are going to presentations?
They're presenting and prepping through the Professional Development Academy that we have in-house.
I see, so then they'll be presenting to their colleagues.
Correct.
I see. Okay, so for number 26, staff being recommended for PD. There's an addition, let's see. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's changed. So Keith Presti is on here somewhere. Number 20, here he is. He's 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 rows down on the table at page number 26. Let's see, there is a change. His presentation hours, recommended presentation hours are 2, and recommended prep hours are 4. So we just, that's doubling. It looks like it's the same code. Number 27, approval of professional development. This is to attend a professional development. There's a new staff person added to that, Christine Teal. Number 28 is another professional development item. This is to attend foundations training, and we're adding Julie Ernst. May I ask, what is foundations again, and why do they have to give it a challenge name for teachers who are adults? It just seems so silly. Like, they might not like it if it doesn't have a fun name.
I didn't name the program.
Oh, I know, no, I
However,
know. It's a third party, right? It's
yeah, Foundations is our phonics and phonemic awareness, a program that supports reading instruction in conjunction with the Teachers College units of study. So we do some Lucy Conference work, but that's not comprehensive of best practice in reading instruction. So we fill it in with the evidence-based program Foundations.
And we didn't create that program, right?
No.
Oh, I just want to make sure I wasn't insulting a name that one of our teachers came up with.
No, nobody can, we can insult the people that actually created it. I don't know who those people are.
It may be a wonderful program, but the name is ridiculous. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Zimmer, for taking over the chess club, at least temporarily, or maybe permanently, I'm not sure. 30, before and after school staff. Okay, I think everything else is self-explanatory. Let me move on to the few items that we discussed not on the agenda. I sent around my minutes. There's a bunch of confidential staff information that you guys can all read about. Dr. Nicosia shared some of her recruitment efforts. We are always looking for difficult to fill positions, trying to be on the lookout for those for middle school, for upper level language teachers in particular. We want to keep an eye out and hire spots where we can. So Dr. Nicosia talked about how she'd been having Rutgers educational students, and maybe not just Rutgers, I'm not sure. Montclair come to Highland Park and observe and speak with Dr. Nicosia, basically like preparing a nice landing spot for them for when and if we need them. And she shared some letters she'd gotten from some of the students thanking her. I think that's a really positive development, and I really appreciate it. There's some recruitment and career fairs going on. It hasn't been hugely successful so far. It seems like the more successful thing of Dr. Nicosia's personal efforts to reach out and having folks come in. So really the labor-intensive work of personally meeting with all these students to try to pique their interest, see what their interests are. Dr. Nicosia shared that, I already talked about this, we have a new tuition-paying student at the ABA program at Bartle. And is it okay to share the Title I progress on the Title I designation for the two schools? Is that's public?
It's not official yet.
No, but then it's coming.
Yeah.
So we're working, the administration is working on having Irving and the high school classified as all school Title I schools. In other words, the money, Title I money would not need to be directed at a particular student. It could be used for programs that serve the entire student body at Irving and the high school. I believe the middle school and Bartle are already Title I schools. So this would be a huge benefit for us, and it's great to know that that's hopefully coming, if all goes well. And that is all I have. Thank you. Oh, questions, sorry, you asked that.
Somebody asked. Okay, now we're on to policy.
Oh, whose policy?
Yeah. There was only one person. Who was in policy? Chris?
Oh,
okay, I was like, wait, no, we had, I'm not,
was I supposed to be here?
No, I was like, wait, no, we did have policy. There was one person that was Chris. Sorry, new committees. I'm adjusting to new committee members. I'm sorry.
I think I was supposed to be there. When was policy?
That's okay. No worries. Chris, do you want to give out a quick report of our 5-minute meeting?
That was my report. That's it. There was nothing, what were the two policies that we discussed?
We reviewed the board office 0152. I'll give the report, Chris. Chris and I member policy. And we reviewed policy 0152 board officers. Basically, how we talked about, I asked Chris for his input, and you all can review our suggestions on the Google document on how you all select the president and how you select the vice president, and just a couple minor language changes because, you know, Strauss make a living. Policy 0161, call, adjournment, and cancellation, a couple minor vocabulary changes to that, but nothing too controversial. Same thing with notice of board meeting 0162, and that is what we reviewed.
The committee deliberated carefully and decided to recommend that we leave it the way it is for election of presidents and so on.
But you all can look at the comment. If you don't agree, go ahead and comment on there, and because it goes for 2 rounds of reading 1 and reading 2. So if you have any comments about the suggestions that are we deliberated a long time over these pressing policies, clearly.
Well, now we have another month to actually increase our deliberative screening.
So next month, policy, if y'all want to come together and talk about anyone, just let me know, I'll be on, and
I think I'm on policy again. I didn't really catch on, sorry.
Sorry, we'll get there, we're okay, we're good, we're all good.
I didn't have to apologize, I am a new member of policy. At the next meeting. Okay.
For sure. I noticed we're abolishing the road forward.
Yes, yeah, we're abolishing, COVID is gone, by that policy.
And that is because that is recommended by stress estimate because the government's
executive orders are done and yada yada.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of these policies, these are not things that we thought up in our great wisdom. They are things that are recommended as a result of changing laws, executive orders, executive guidance, statutes, sometimes not in this case.
Correct, but I will say I thank Curriculum Instruction Equity Excellence for reviewing a couple of the ones, especially the attendance policy and things like that, and some of the other groups as well, because we found some language that you have to remember that sometimes we change the language independent of Strauss, and that my secretary, for those who don't know, my secretary matches the two to find the differences, and that's what you'll see with the cross-offs and things like that. And so sometimes she crosses something off, but it's language we actually want to keep, even though Strauss didn't recommend it. So that's why it's really important that we do go through them with a fine-tooth comb to make sure we find those, so that and they go for 2 readings. So if we don't catch it the first time, we can catch it the second time, and we passed things and had to go back and do it all over again because we've missed some things too. So it happens, but nothing too controversial in this world this time. Policy.
That's one reason. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. That's one reason I think that, at least when I look at these policies, I'm less likely to recommend language changes that are just language changes. So sometimes the language is really awkward, but every time we change the language to make it more mellifluous, that means next time we get a changed policy, we have to figure out which is the language that we want to keep, and which is the language that we added, and which is the language. So sometimes you'll see some awkwardly worded syntax that we left in there for a reason. And sometimes you'll see, well, we have a month to look at these policies, and we will look at them. But thank you for reading the report, for all of us.
Okay, we'll move on to board action items. First, curriculum instruction. I move I'd like to move items number 1 through 7.
Second.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Mislevich?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Finance and facilities.
I'd like to move items 1 through 22 as amended.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Mislevich?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Personnel.
I would like to move numbers 1 through Butterfingers, just a second. 1 through 32.
Second.
Ms. Cassell-Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes on, I guess I'll say 1 through 11. I'm going to abstain on 12, and then yes on 13 through 32.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes, yes on everything, abstain on number 12, please.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Mislevich?
I'm going to abstain on 19 and yes to the remainder.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
All
we
right, policy? Who would like first? I can't do anything, so Chris, I didn't help there. I can't do.
I'll move policy.
all right, go
That's
ahead.
the last chair. Second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
Ms. Casaldo?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Mr. Krieger?
Yes.
Mr. Rizlovich?
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
Okay. Board liaison reports. Anybody have anything to report?
Human Relations was canceled this month.
You had HPEF that you went to on the.
I did.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't make HPEF, but Dr. Nicosia was attending. So.
I did, so we spent the whole time, so I'm not sure, I believe, did you comment last time on the executor will with the funds?
I don't believe.
Okay, so a gentleman in town with the last name of Kushner unfortunately passed away, and the executor of his estate sent out a letter to all Highland Park 501c3 charities saying that money will be bequeathed to a charity or charities of the executor's choice after all the gifts and taxes, estate taxes and all of that is paid off. And the charities are, nonprofits are to submit a letter of how they'd like to use the money, with the caveat that whatever it is named in honor of his late mother, Ida Kushner. So like a wing, a building, something in her memory. I know the Booster Club is putting something together to submit. I'm not sure if they're giving a report tonight, but I believe they were looking at some renovations to the baseball field and naming that. The HPEF reviewed, I met with them and we reviewed 4 options that the district would like to propose. The Ida Kushner Early Childhood Learning Center, pre-K. However, we got word that might be, like the $10 million mark might be a little too much money to put in. They may be looking to fund multiple things. So, we kind of joke that maybe it'll be the Ida Kushner, town, because I'm not sure how many things her name's going to be on. So the 2 that we settled on are going to be a Bartle expansion, a building expansion for about $2.5–3 million for some special education stuff. For example, I know our ADA classrooms will be expanding up from Irving to Bartle, and so those classrooms need bathroom access for toileting, because we do have some ADA students that will need that. Plus for our related services and things like that, our special ed area is growing. We want to provide more classroom space and stuff like that. Right now we have classrooms makeshifted by fake walls to cut classrooms in half because we're busting at the seams at Bartle. So maybe the Ida Kushner wing, special education wing, might be an option. So we submitted that. And then also the other one is a high school sustainability center outside. So we've been working on a lot of gardening. If you've seen some of the fruits of, pun intended, their labor. It's been really great, and we have some teachers that are really passionate about that. And we can bring that into the curriculum in our classes in biology, chemistry, in our nutrition class, in our environmental sustainability class. So we're looking at a sustainability center, kind of like a biodome, outside, like an outside greenhouse. So the Ida Kushner Sustainability Center is what we're proposing for a couple $100,000. Because we need electricity out there, running water, and things like that. So those are the 2 projects that the HPF is putting forth. At the next meeting, we're going to talk about the next cycle of grants and kind of wrap up this project.
What a beautiful, generous potential gift.
Yes.
That's really, that's a very nice thing. Yeah.
Okay. Any other liaison reports?
I can speak to the Board of Health real quick.
Sure.
Speaking of gifts, we got a very nice donation pre-pandemic of condoms for the high school. Donated by the vendor, and the high school is looking to see if the Board of Health can help us get a new donation. But I did reach out to the Highland Foundation, who may be willing to help to assist. They may be able to. They needed more stats, and in the process of researching how many were used, which was a little bit difficult, or given out. It was a little bit difficult to figure that out because it was right before the pandemic. So some of them expired, unfortunately, but in the process of looking to see what we had, they actually found there were quite a few cases unopened and hadn't expired. So we won't need donations this year, but that was an agenda item that we'll revisit for next year. That was
And may I ask, have we moved to, we discussed this kind of ad nauseum several years ago, have we moved to having machines in the bathrooms, or do students still have to go to the nurse, say they need a condom, and just sign into the nurse's office? Because that didn't seem like a very effective route for...
I don't think they have the, it's a basket.
I don't think they have to sign in, but it's a basket there, and there's no questions asked, and students apparently just take advantage of it without any problem or any issue or anything like that, so it seems to be working, and I'm glad that they're taking advantage of getting condoms if they're going to be sexually active.
Yes, if they're going to be needing condoms.
If they need the tool is available to them.
I'd still like to see us,
I don't know.
I'd still like to see us move at some point toward a more anonymous way of doing this. We talked for a long time about having dispensers in the bathroom. I know there was a concern on the part of, some of the administration that perhaps this would encourage students to become sexually active. The research doesn't really bear that out. So, but that was the reason that was one of the reasons that there was. It was kind of a slow pace toward that goal.
I didn't hear that comment. I just heard possibly, some issues with like bathroom vandalism and things
that
like
too.
that.
People blowing up condoms, and I still feel that like probably the benefit would outweigh the harm. I mean, there's going to be a blown up condom floating in a stairway at some point.
I mean, we can certainly. I could have our director of facilities look into how much they cost if we can afford them. I know there's other things that are higher on our facilities.
I know.
Request list like maybe detectors and cameras. No, I don't know anything about that. Do you want to mention something about that?
Well, I do know that there is an initiative in the high school to provide dispensers in the young women's bathrooms for feminine products.
Oh, that'd be great.
So, yeah, there's a big initiative.
Oh, I had no idea. Wow. Well,
I mean, maybe we could have a pilot program where there's a basket.
We could do both.
Yes.
Well,
grab a tampon and a condom.
Yes.
I would be a little bit nervous about like the Halloween effect, where people put the basket on their porch and then one person takes them off.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what came up in the past.
I mean, I was thinking we could at least try a pilot of putting baskets in some of the bathrooms and see. I mean, it's not a given that necessarily the first thing to happen will be someone takes all the condoms. I mean, most of our students are fairly community-minded. There's always somebody who can't resist their prank.
I think there will be more than one somebody, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Mazur says that there doesn't seem to be a problem. They're being used so much that we needed more until we found the, lost items that we had. So, I mean, but that's good. I'm glad that we're running. I'm not glad we're running up, but I'm glad we're running out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to put that.
Nobody wants to encourage sexual activity on the part of the children. We're too young for it, but if
I'm not encouraging it, but if you're going to do it, be safe.
Yes. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
High school
Do
students
it.
right here.
Abstinence.
Nobody in high school in my family, for example, should be making. I mean, I have to say, if I was a kid in high school, I would not go to the nurse's office and pick up a condom. I mean, I'd be totally humiliated.
Could we maybe guidance suites as like the next step? Or
Maybe we could put some in the guidance suites.
Something, yeah. I mean,
but I feel like the nurse is pretty much occupied most of the time, so.
She's not
someone
monitoring,
comes in,
grabbing
grabs it, it's probably not.
multiple condoms.
yeah, you stick your hand in her mouth. Right, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry.
A little joking over there.
All right.
Okay. I have no president's report. Marilyn, please come back.
Is she in Ecuador? Is she still in Ecuador?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful.
Can't wait. Any old business? Any new business?
I do have a question for Christina, and it's related to potential an overnight senior class trip. What I've been told by some people that they've been told that they are not permitted to have an overnight trip as a senior class. And I just wanted to find out if there was some sort of thing that happened in the past or some sort of budget issue, where that rumor or if it's actual fact is coming from.
Okay, yeah, and I will, I'll look into it because I don't know if it's a rumor or if it's fact. I'm not sure, so I will try to do some recon and get some historical knowledge to figure it out. I have no idea.
And then another thing is I attended the project graduation meeting the other evening, and I had a question. Has the board ever contributed towards Project Graduation?
My understanding is the senior class is maybe not doing quite as well as it could with fundraising.
Well,
I understand from direct information from my child, and so money is needed.
Money is needed. They have just started a large push for it, but I just trying to figure out if it was ever anything that was on the board's end of things, or
And maybe that's usually funded by parents, but I see the class as a whole.
Yeah, Linda has a comment.
In the past, the board has not made a donation to a particular group. There have been times when, for example, I believe the Education Foundation, when they had their event, board members would personally, perhaps collectively, make a donation that would be to have the name put in the program.
I see, yeah.
But it's not paid for by district funds, taxpayer dollars.
Ah, right, that makes sense.
And certainly they can encourage fundraising and encourage members of the public to make contributions.
I would like to say something on behalf of the senior class. It would be very helpful if our Krispy Kreme fundraiser that's going to be starting up tomorrow, if everybody in the district were to participate and buy a box of donuts, which would be $15 for plastic, and then the assorted donuts will be $17 a box, and then we're also selling coffee. So if everybody in the district will participate, it's going to be one of our biggest fundraisers.
All right.
Very helpful.
And be on the lookout for my newsletter, because it'll be highlighted in my newsletter this week.
Hey, so it's tomorrow?
The information should be sent out tomorrow, and then the high school teachers should be getting paper copies of the forms to hand out to students.
So students will be taking orders from parents, for example? Or what will happen? Because I want some donuts. I'm not sure I can get them from...
Students can either buy them or they can self-on their own as well. So they'll all have access to an order form where they can fill it out with their own orders or friends or family's orders, and then they have to turn it in by a certain date, and we'll get the donuts in like 2 weeks later.
Okay, that is brilliant. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, better than, much respect to the folks who do chocolate sales. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. I know it's a really hard work for the staff. But boy, I don't think I've ever bought one, but donuts and coffee.
Cream?
Yes.
Send
Come on now.
Send it to the board email address.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we can buy some board donuts for
I
board.
buy a dozen, that might be.
Absolutely.
And by the way, if you freeze them and then put them in, if you have an air fryer, put them in the air fryer.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
We should buy some for a board meeting.
All right. I'll buy some.
I mean, we could, at a meeting necessarily. Dr. Nicosi, you're probably spending enough on donuts.
All right, so no more lemon cake, Krispy Kreme donuts is what you're saying. Oh, wait, and the lemon cake, I'm sorry.
Let's go.
The lemon cake's Sorry, the important things at 9 o'clock at night, no one uses dog.
Can we have them now?
All right, we're going to move on to the second public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies number 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. Do we have any public commenters? Seeing none, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.